We are ready to go. Good morning. This is Simon with ToughTrader.com and Trading Performance Coaching. Before we get started, lovely legal disclaimer. Why do I have to put this up? Because you can lose a lot of money trading. I want everyone to know that I'm trying to teach people how to trade, not trade for them, right? Past performance is not indicative of future results. I'm sharing my trade plan with you to hope that it makes you a better trader. I do lose money, be clear. I do have trades that lose. No one's perfect. Anyone who claims that they are, that is simply inaccurate. Okay, every good trader loses money, part of the deal. Okay, let's see, past performance not indicative of future results. Please make sure you have a trade plan, a written trade plan, and a written capital management plan. Build the lights in here. And that you follow it, right? That you're willing to accept that, hey, some days are down. You're willing to walk away. If you're consistently losing money, stop trading. My number one piece of advice, stop trading. Okay, let's jump into it for today. So we get rid of this and we come over here to 12.6. The first thing I want to point out is from yesterday, right? Okay, on NQ, extreme ranges, 100-point ranges. That's $2,000 per contract, okay? It is not the old market, okay? I would allow big fat rotations or to become very, very accurate in your entry and exit methodology, okay? I'd be patient. The rotations should come back into more manageable areas. If you're not around or don't have capital when it does, you won't be able to make money, okay? Let's get Globex high and low in really quick. So let's start with ES for today. And we have Globex high at 2631.50. We are opening near Globex high. Clearly, NQ and ES have disconnected. Okay, 31.50. And Globex low came in at 2620, just past the yellow zone. Let's see if I missed something there. Hold on one second. Sometimes you take it off the, what is at 2620? Absolutely nothing. This whole area was poorly auctioned. It was a general reversal point, but there was nothing there till, even if I was going to put a zone here, I would have put it right. Even if I was going to put an area, this whole area was poorly auctioned. I'd have put it right here at 26.15. There was nothing at 26.20 except it was the bottom of the afternoon prior to this news piece hitting. It was the swing low going back to the 29th, but that's old information. I don't think I would have put a zone there even if I could have. Additionally, let's see, 26.28 wasn't even a 10-point stretch. I have no reason for putting a zone there. And on the upside, this whole area makes sense as a resistance point. Yeah, we'll go look at what this looks like from the overnight. Let's go get NQ handled really quick. Oh, 1 second here. I'm going to put in. Okay, here we go with NQ. And we're going to switch positions here with the Russell. The Russell did quite well yesterday with the zones, by the way, and has been doing quite well with the zones from day to day. NQ, let's get Globex high and low in. We retested that low finally. We came in at 62.3250, excuse me, 62.3250, just above that NVPOC. And then we trap back in. Again, people are pretty nuts with this, with the rotations. I wouldn't expect 100 points up, but again, I'm going to trust the algos in the morning for triggering me in and out of shorts because Wow, that was very, very difficult. The first question I'm asking, however, is can we close the gap and can we get gap fill and can we get back to value area low? If we can't, so this is important for NQ today. If we cannot trade back into value area low, expect a rollover and then come back in and test the 61.89 to 61.49. That's really my targets to the downside for looking for reversal trades. It will get hard on NQ. Make no mistake about it. This is not going to end. The reversal day will not end pretty. My suggestion is you focus on ES if you cannot handle the large rotations involved there. This will not, I'm stressing this to the guys in the room. This will not last forever. Don't blow out your account trying to make the trade fit your curve, right? I spoke to several people in the room, two in particular. They try to use 10-point stops to make their trades work. Their trades would have worked for them, but they got stopped out multiple times. On two people in particular got stopped out multiple times on 10-point rotations, okay? And on trades that would have worked. 10 points are turning into one bar, one 5-minute bar. 20 points are turning into one 5-minute bar. This is where you have a trade that gets set up that would normally work for you, and you're just getting knocked out. The way to fix that, the way you figure that out, I'm going to show you right now. Okay, let's say you thought this was a short right here. Okay, let's say for whatever reason you found the top and you thought this was your trigger bar right here for the short, right? You said, that's it. We've closed below my last buyer, and I want to be short through here. Perfectly correct, right? Well, the first thing you had to look up is if you're entering this bar by itself, right? The low of that bar was 62.23. The high was 63.23 to 63.31. That bar by itself, at a minimum, you had to have a stop behind 63.31. The high was 63.40, and if you really thought that was a top, that's where you wanted the entry. So if you're going to put your stop at 63.40, right, or 63.40 in a tick, and 10 points is all you can afford, take 63.40, subtract 10, that should be your entry level so that you can survive that trade, okay? If you do it the other way around, I'm just going to take it and see if the 10-point stop holds. What's most likely to happen is you end up with a 10-point stop and you watch the trade work in your favor, or lower your trade size to adjust for the volatility. It's my strongest suggestion I can possibly have here. Globex high, we're only down 17 on NQ. It's trying to bounce off those lows. Globex high came up near Asia session, 62.79, which puts us right in right in here. So next, let's talk about something that's important, right? Just like I talked about getting behind your last seller to look for a trade to the upside, in order to avoid getting run over on the upside, wait till you get behind your last buyer. This is a 5-minute chart all the way through yesterday. I made the same mistake. I shorted in the morning. I lost 17 points, equivalent of 17 points on a full-size trade for myself because I simply failed to wait to at least get behind my last seller, my last buyer. Had I done that, we did not close behind my last buyer, till all the way up here, right? And I want to show you that carefully so you can see. We never get behind, right? We never get behind in terms of a closing bar underneath the bar of the last buyer, all the way up. That would have saved me 17 points. It wasn't horrible considering we moved 100 points, right? And I certainly didn't expect a move of 100 points, but you can learn so much off of the mistakes you make when you're trading poorly or when you take losses, more than you can when you make money, right? I also made another trading error yesterday. My daughter obviously hurt herself. I had to go help her, and I left an order open. I moved the limit order to short right in here at 63.08. This is approximately when I left, and it lifted, and I forgot to check whether I had any open orders. I was filled at 63.08 on the way back down, which by the way, meant I was down almost 13 points on that trade at one point. This is when I got back from taking my daughter to the doctor and getting back. I got very, very lucky to end up with almost a 30-point trade in the bank. It saved my day. It made me profitable on the day. That was a full-size position, and I got extremely lucky. It could have been a horrible loss for me. I had no stop in on that trade because I don't place my stops until after I get the fill. So I'm just being straight with y'all. I made a mistake. It worked out in my favor. Otherwise, yesterday would have been a down day for me. Zero question in my mind. That's the only reason I was profitable. Okay. On ES, so let's take a look at the big picture of what's going on here. Okay. Let's jump over to ES, and then we'll jump over to NQ and look at the profiles really quick. ES. Let's make sure y'all can see the other computer. Okay, everyone can see this, correct? Can I get a confirmation really quick? Yes, okay, cool. So if you look at the overall picture of ES, no damage has occurred. We just hit a new all-time high. We trapped back in. So let's erase all the lines and let's tell the story, okay? This was the original. Let's pull this down a little bit further, okay? So we have the whole story and we can do it calmly. We have time to do that. Here was your breakout point, right? That was all the way back on 1110 or 1120. That was a breakout point. You see that we consolidated in value above, consolidated for 3 days above the prior value area. None of this has been retested since we broke out above. This was the breakout. So a couple of things. 25.93 and a quarter. That is where your failure or where there's a serious problem. That is where there's a serious problem with the market. If we're going to have any kind of problem, that's where it'll develop. Okay? No place else. Until then, until we're underneath that, expect responsive buyers. The second thing you can see quite clearly is rotation size has increased. If I'm trading ES, I'm looking at 10 points, right? Unless I have another method of entry or management, i.e. the algos or something to that effect, that is telling me to give me an alternate trade from a manual trade standpoint. I want to make sure I've got a stretch. Since we're extremely volatile, I'd probably rather see a 20-point stretch. Secondly, if I trade 3 ES contracts, I probably want to trade 2 ES contracts to give myself a little bit more margin for stops since it's more volatile than it normally is. Secondly, the U-turns are getting pretty significant on both sides of the coin, right? Expect stretches both ways. Get rid of the mentality that we're going straight one way or the other. It's just not happening right now. There's really no one to defend either side of the range here. What has to happen to defend the other side of the range? You can see that we're building a ton of time and volume right up here on this 2639, 2640. We're opening right underneath it. So this is a multi-day composite, which I'll show you in a second. But you can see we're building time and volume above. And then down here on the other end of the coin, we built time and volume below, down in this area, and then a significant chunk of time and volume in this area. So this is small. This is very big. Okay. I would expect this to have a small defense. I would expect this area, which is very large, right? It compromises almost 50 points. I would expect a significant defense of this area. And of course, I would expect a defense of the 25.93 backside test of the breakout. Until we get into this area, it's going to be pretty easy to move both sides. Those are really your lines of defense. The hardest place to trade will be between that 26.39 and that 26.01. We simply haven't spent a lot of concentrated time to build volume or time. What that looks like, right? So what that looks like here, let me duplicate this chart. Okay. So we're going to go to a 1 hour bar. Okay. So what that looks like in here, what the profile looks like all the way through. So this is your breakout, right? It doesn't look so big and scary from here, right? This is your breakout from that swing low to our swing high, right? That whole thing. This is what the profile looks like, a multi-day composite profile, right? And what you can see is the majority of the volume. See this right here? The majority of the volume is built between here. We'll color it like this. Here, green's just as good as any other color. Down to here. Okay, over here in this area, specifically here to here, right? Very poorly auctioned, below 25.47, could get really fast. See through here in this area right here to here. See how the market, how that coincides with the market being able to move through really easily, right? So understand this morning, below this point right here, 26, 25, 75. Okay, we're trading at 26, 26 and 3/4. We're right on the cusp of that. It would be very easy to move from 26.25 down to 25.82. Not saying that it'll do it in a straight line, but I expect rotation size. If you look in here specifically, rotation sizes are very large. There's just not much to defend. It gets a little bit better, right, as we approach 26.01. But specifically 26.25 to 26.01, expect a fast market. We can trade straight through here if people get panicky, and we can trade straight through until we get towards the 25.90s to 25.80s, right? Expect that to get defended from this whole run up. 25.80 is the volume point of control. That's where I would expect a defense. It is achievable. That's only 46 points away from where we're currently trading, right? And I will look for opportunities if we start to consolidate underneath this area against 26, 25, 75 for a push down towards 26.01. I seriously doubt I'll hold a trade long enough to get to 25.82 or 25.80. It'll have to set up again later in the day because there'll be counter rotations. It's just not the kind of trader I am. The next area, if we get underneath this, it should get very slippery between 25.47 and then the next major area, should we somehow break down by some miracle, down to 25.07. This is the next slippery area. So I expect it to slow down from 82 to 47, speed up from 47 to 07, right? And I expect it to move fairly easily through this area. Now, the alternative is that the market decides it's going to fill in volume here and we slow grind. How will we know that? We'll see from the price action that the market's developing, right? That it's either grinding through very slowly and it's choppy, and we'll go, oh, we're just filling in the volume node through here, right? But until we do that, until we start to do that, we will not know. The area of key resistance, even though this area is here, the big volume build is up here at 26.37, right? And that's where it'll slow down on top. Okay, so the market likes to travel from high volume node to high volume node, back and forth, filling in areas that are left empty. Okay, let's go look at NQ really quick. We'll keep that for reference for later on. NQ. I have no idea on NQ which way they're going to take it, by the way, today. It's a 100-point range. I'm going to let my algos tell me what to do first, and then I'll decide secondly, other than to say, do not assume the shorts or the longs have it, right? Okay, we had a double distribution on NQ. Generally speaking, the rule of thumb is this further distribution will provide the resistance area. That's 63.02 to 63.21. Okay, that is a long way away, but considering we have a 100-point range, that's certainly achievable, number one. Number two, when we pull this in and do the same little examination that we just did, right, you can see that we are building quite a bit of volume on top. Where do we break? 62.25.75, which is approximately where we bounced. Below 62.25.75, you can just see from where all the blue areas are collected, there's really not a lot of support until we get down into this area down here. That area begins, right? You won't have that in your notes, begins really at 61.28. That is approximately 120 points from where we are right now, and it is certainly achievable. If we get below 61.28 and lock in, the old ranges now become conceivable. I'm not going to go into much work and talking about this. This is well auctioned, right? So the two areas that it's ping-ponging in right now, it's trying to hold this lower level support. And if it fails that 62.25, look for it to come to 61.20. So what does that look like from a volume profile standpoint? Let's go look. Okay, doesn't look nearly as scary and bad from this perspective yet again. Okay, there we are. So from swing low to swing high to current. So this is what it looked like originally. Okay. Okay. You will notice we have a large area of support. Notice that underneath this little lip right here, 62.18, it gets really ugly, right? Notice that right over here, we have a hole, right? Notice that was the high from the fourth. We have a hole in the profile right there. It has not filled, it had not filled into that point. Notice that we slipped straight down and came into the hourly point of control, found responsive buyers. We then slipped underneath, and we're now ping-ponging from above and below through this area. The profile got fixed to a certain degree, but notice in here, right? In here, this profile is very thin. This is the gap. Okay, so technically there's no volume in this area, in the 6100. The half gap will generally hold, right? We're almost at the open here. And I want to show you how this profile filled out. See how we filled in this area here, but we haven't touched this area. If we lose 61.18, this thing can get very slippery through this area. Just be concerned, just write in your notes, below 61.18, this thing has some room to accelerate to the downside where right down to the gap fill, and the volume behind the gap fill is actually built behind here at 60.59. It's hard to conceive that we're going to get there in one day, but the ranges have expanded. This is almost 200 points away. We can certainly get there in 2 days given the rotation size, right? So for today, what am I looking for? 60. I'm pushing to 60-point rotations on NQ, and I'm looking for clear reversal signs. We have 3 minutes to the open, so I'm telling you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for tick divergence, and I'm looking to get above my last seller. Even if I have to take a stop, I'm looking to get above my last seller, okay, and then use 50-60 retraces to work against that low, because that gives me an ability to define how I'm trading, right? So I'll give you an example of what that would have looked like yesterday, both from a long and a short story. Okay, yesterday, getting below my last buyer, right, occurred right here where we closed below. This is where I'm starting to look for an opportunity to work my short side trade, right? This is where I got above my last buyer. Even though it would have stopped me, I'm still all right taking a 50-60 retrace through here. You'll notice if you took the 50-60, you still had an opportunity to scale out with a profit out of this location. Once we closed behind that 62, that particular trade from this section was all over. And additionally, right, I hammer this over and over and over again. Once we closed behind the 62 retrace for the day, right, big picture, that was the 50 retrace for the big picture. We closed behind the 62, and it goes into long side liquidation. That 62 retrace, if I have the low correct and I haven't fudged it, I don't. Let me retrace this real quick. There we go. This 62 retrace is sitting right at 62.76. Okay. The backside test of that, there's structure here. Look for a rejection there for a rotation down. Tuesday's low has been tested multiple times. I do not expect that low to hold the first time down. I know that it held overnight. It's easy for it to hold because there's nothing to arbitrage against. Obviously, the 100 stocks and the NASDAQ 100 are not there. I would expect this to give way today if we retest. I'm not eager to test Globex low. Again, I will wait to get above my last seller, and then I will look for my volume indications, my tick divergence, and what the internals look like off the open. So I have 1 minute to reset my domes, or 2 minutes to reset the domes. So give me a minute to get that set and get the chart set up. Excuse me. And then Russell, the nice thing about Russell worked pretty much fine. It really goes about its merry way, regardless of what the market is doing overall. Okay, and let me give me just a second here. I will have all these charts duplicated and set up. I'm just taking it easy, making sure I can get my charts set up properly. And we are open. I would have a trigger to the short side on ES at 26.25, just so everyone knows. It's opening right into the area where the profile has to be repaired. So that's my first signal that I've gotten so far on the day. Again, it'd have to be below 26.25 to trigger. NQ attempting its push to the upside. And again, skipping the first half hour is totally acceptable in my eyes. Totally acceptable. And on NQ, again, I'm just showing where the triggers are for the algo. Off of a 15 minutes below 26.42 would trigger a short for me. That stop will be 25.59. It's off a large time frame, right? So just keep that in mind. And by the way, tick is negative 427, and advancers over decliners comes in at There we are. We are opening at a 0.66 advanced decline ratio. Advancers are only 998. That would not argue for an upside open, right? And decliners are positive. Decliners are positive 1539. So not what we normally look for when we're looking for a reversal out of the gate. I'm certain someone's going to try to grab that 100-point move on NQ. My gut would tell me to fade that. Okay, but again, it cost me 17 points of that same gut, right? Ralph, I'm looking back at the comments so I can see what you just had to say. 26.2750 was last week's middle, according to Ralph. Thank you for the feedback. Again, not shocking that they're trying to take I'll switch off of this. NQ attempting to fill the gap. I'd still have ES short below 26.25. Just FYI. I can't imagine they're going to run it up another 100 points this morning, but who knows? That's why I think the first half hour you can let go. I mean, clearly people are uncertain as to which way they want to run this market. So I know my intention is simply not to get bone crushed in this. Russell's just not doing anything. Attempting over that 26.27. Pushing up into the value area low Again, it has to stay. If it overlaps in the value area low, right, it is over. Just depends on how badly they want to squeeze them up. Pretty. If you are very aggressive, this is where you want to start pressing all the way through the white zones is what you're looking for in here. You may want to wait for some kind of reversal signal, but these are areas that are valid reversal areas. Again, I don't trust it because of how fast NQ's been running. It's 100 points, right? So far, we've put in 40 points. The openings are just freaking on NQ right now are just dangerous. Of course, there's somebody who keeps buying the gap down going, this is so easy. So it's all a matter of perspective. For me, not so interested in that. NQ, by the way, is up on the day, and so is ES. This is where I had and this is Globex high. This is where I had resistance. All the way back to that 63.20. Again, you can wait till you get underneath at least one 5-minute bar will protect you from getting run over. It's so easy to cover 10 points right now for NQ. If you look at the dome again on the bid-ask size is pretty thin. 100 contracts, 300 contracts versus the normal 600, 700 contracts that you would see. Remember, try not to pay attention to the range and instead watch the bars. They'll tell you when you get underneath your last seller, right? Watch structure and bars. This is structure up here, right? This is why there's white zones up here in this market. There's no structure up here till all the way up here on ES. Again, ES hasn't fallen apart. Coming up to a 0 tick. Advancers improving. So that's a rotation off the low, 62.40 to 62.80, 40 points. So some of the best traders I know have gotten really had some serious stops in this environment, guys. That's why you see me just laying very, very low here. I've seen very few people who are killing it. I've seen a lot of people who are getting killed trying to apply their old rhythms and their old dynamics to the current environment, meaning 10-point stops, normal stops. Their trade is still correct, but their stops are getting crushed. Again, almost to the white zone, which made sense, right? Almost to the white zone. I expected rejection in this area in general. The 5-minute bars are so big that it's, going to take a little bit of work to get up underneath them. And this tells you a lot about the psychology of the participants, right? When we're just slamming one side to the other, do you have a high degree of confidence or a low degree of confidence in the environment, right? When we had nice tight rotations, it told you, right? It tells you there's a lot of money sloshing around the market right now, a lot, right? And they're slamming it both ways, right? That means that there's big players playing, and that you have a combination of people stepping away from the bid and the ask and a lot of money running through. You get range expansion. Oh, I know what the problem is here. Let me fix this. Sorry, guys. There we go. Looks a little bit better. That NQ is on a 5-minute bar. No, I switched it, Ian. I just switched it off. Again, rejection out of that value area low on NQ. Underneath 26.27, I think there's a problem, personally. Below 62.70, I would have a trigger for a short on a very small time frame on NQ, meaning that's triggering off a 2-minute chart. It'd have to tag 62.70, and the stop is the high of the day. That's a pretty much 10-point stop at that point. More than that, be about a 15-point stop, somewhere in that range, without doing the math quickly. $62.70 specifically would be the trigger. That's off a 2-minute time frame. I'll share the time frames that those are coming off of on the algos. Same thing on the 5-minute once this 5-minute bar closes, which is another 2 minutes away. Again, there's scalps on those setups. And what I try to do is turn those scalps into trade location. That triggered on 70.25. Okay, now see the algo automatically starts scaling on that trade, right? So when it triggered 70.25 and filled, it's already covering that trade off of on the 2-minute time frame, right? So just keep that in mind. And the stop goes all the way back at the high of the day, right? So it's a big stop on that trade. And that's just part of the deal with the rotations. The other choice is just to move your stop to break even and hope it doesn't do a backside test, but you will get a lot of stops on that backside test. So I'm not expecting anyone to be trading that. I'm just pointing them out as they set up. That's all. This will set in a minute, this 5-minute bar, and it'll be the first 5-minute trigger on ES. And Q will trigger a short as well, but it has not gotten below its last set of buyers. And that's because the bars were so big. So that 62.70.25, I would take a scale off of that, just FYI. If you have more than one contract and you took it. Okay, now a trade below this bar right here on the 5. So 62, 64.75 would trigger a short on NQ. On ES, it just triggered short. Below 26.28 would trigger a short on ES. Again, the stop against the high of the day. And again, the idea is to scale them relatively quickly. So that triggered and set on both NQ. See, Russell triggered as well, but I don't have enough time to trigger it. So this triggered as soon as it traded below the low. This triggered as soon as it traded below the low. It was on a 2-minute chart. I'm not going to flip it over, but the 2-minute came first, the 5-minute came second. So this just triggered, right? Again, the stop is all the way against the swing high on this. So this algo is designed as a scalping algo, not as a swing algo. So keep that in mind. On 15-minute time frames, which are more swing time frames, I will not have a short trigger until 26.25 will be my next on ES. And on NQ, 15-minute doesn't have an entry yet. I'm gonna have to get another monitor going on this. You're going to have a very cool hand to trade NQ. Russell below Tuesday's low and rolling down. You're going to have a very cool hand to trade that. There's no question about it. You're just going to have to trade through a series of wins and losses on that trade. For right now. Let's say 5 minutes till top of the hour. $26.37.75, PJ. Wow, you expect a nice extension up. It's a little bit below my white zone, but I don't have anything against it. That pushes into value area low. Also puts it up 10 up. So certainly possible. I personally hate that the range is this big on NQ. I guess it's cool from a smaller perspective, but I really don't like it. And that's why you have to scale these algo trades. They get profitable sometimes very briefly, and you got to take the P&L off. New highs coming up on NQ. Now, I was hoping for an intraday push down to get long. That really is just really sucks that we're going straight up and then straight down. Like the dips later in the afternoon aren't providing U-turns, right? Well, I think, Daniel, that really depends on how you look at it. I had someone who had multiple trades yesterday. From how you trade, yeah, there's only been 2 trades available. But a lot of guys would have been, a lot of scalpers would be scalping through this left and right. No question about it. I had someone, I have one of the guys I coach. He ran 42 trades yesterday. He was profitable across the board. They were all scalps. It really just depends on how you look at the market. He doesn't ever look at 20 and 30 point swings. He looks at 3 and 5 point swings. So to every person, there's a different way to cut this thing up. That was, by the way, looked like an equivalent of a 1 tick of the high on NQ. Rejection right at the white zone, right, at 62.85. Again, I have no idea which way I can't look at the NASDAQ and go, this is what it wants to do. So that's why you don't see me making a trading call on it. I'm only pointing out where there's scalp locations, and that's it. I just don't understand what the market's trying to do. I think if you ask anyone else, they wouldn't either. I talked to guys at hedge funds, and they're like, we have no idea. He goes, we know that some funds are liquidating end of the year to lock profits. Because we know some guys are heavy cash. Everyone's confused in this environment. So if you look at it and go, hey, I know what the market's going to do here, especially on NQ, you're a nut. There's just no way, right? How can you tell when there's 200-point ranges what it's going to do accurately at the highest volatility? I certainly can't. I don't know that either, Daniel. Like I said, you're asking me. I just can't tell. I know this white zone should serve as resistance. Clearly, people are there's not a look. There's 30 contracts on the S&P bid right now, 30 just now. That tells you market makers have stepped away. The normal rules just don't apply. I'm not going to get slaughtered in this environment. When we're running, we've rotated off the low for a second day in a row from 62.30, let's just call it 62.40 to 62.90, 50 points. I said 60 points was what I'd be looking for in terms of rotation, but I'm going to let this settle. I can just tell you that with confidence. I'm going to let this settle. I thought that white zone was the right place for a rejection, but I can't handle the rotation size right now. And I can't see which way it wants to go. It's making higher highs and higher lows. I'm just going through the math, right? I said that this area, I wrote in the notes, profile repaired once we trade here, right? So the profile's repaired. I just don't have a rhythm. So as soon as I get that rhythm, and I'm mentally trying to get that rhythm, I'm just scalping it through in the meantime. So right now, my first short on NQ would trigger on a trade below 62.72. And again, the stop would have to be the high of the day, so that brings up another 18-point stop, right? That's $400 a contract, not exactly, and that's a small time frame, right? So now I'm busting it all the way down to a 2-minute chart, and on a 2-minute chart, I don't have a signal one way or the other. And even with that, when that triggered in here, right, on that 2-minute chart, you would have had to cover this bar. There was no follow through on this bar. And for those who are new in the room, Russell has no connection to this whatsoever. Just NQ's become a little unmanageable right now. That's all. It's great from the 2-minute chart actually works on it, which is great, but that's only because it's overshooting areas. Normally 2 minutes would be a little nutty. You can't handle the rotation size. I can't handle the rotation size. I can't handle 60 points. It's $1,200 a contract. I don't like getting pushed out of my trades. And I'd say at this point on NQ, clearly trading below 62, 62.75 opens us up for a rotation to the downside, but that's not a shock, right? No, I agree. You have to be Iceman today, Ian. You're totally right. I agree with that 100%. I'm trying to pull a half-hour chart to get a perspective on this. So the magic number at this point to get below from a 30-minute perspective, 62.74 is where the volume point of control is from the first half hour. 62.74, you have to get underneath that in order to start rolling to the downside. 62.75 gives us a break, starts us on a break or a roll to the downside. Again, this is just analysis by another means. And then 62.89, that was the break. Here, I'll show you this chart that I'm working on. This was the break from yesterday's bar. That was the bar that broke. That's where all the volume was. You'll see we just rejected off of it at 62.89, right? So now we have to get hold 62.89, then get below 62.74. You can come back and retest the low, and then a break of this low, right? First from the smaller time frame, which is a 5-minute, then the 30-minute time frame, right? What gets us to new lows? Break of that 62.35 1/4. That's kind of the lay of the land right now. And there's not much else to say or do around that. You just got to let it work itself out. Eventually, everyone will get on the same page. The liquidity will get there, and we'll all understand. But right now, you can just see from the dome that people just aren't confident one way or the other as to which way the market's going. That's why we're just sloshing capital back and forth, right? My suggestion is this will not last forever. Even if the ranges stay wide, the massive sloshing from one end to another will slow down, and we'll start to get a rhythm. Right now, we're having a massive amount of capital go through, and we're not pushing one direction or another. It's just all in, all out, but within a range, right? So it's very hard to have a commitment to going, well, this is how I think the market's going to roll today, right? But instead of doing that, look at it and go, well, which way is the market trying to go? What's it trying to do, and how good a job is it trying to do it? How well a job is it trying to do? And what it's essentially doing is what we're doing is we're trapping longs on top, and then we're breaking those guys. Everyone panics, and then we're trapping shorts below. But we're not trying to go anywhere, right? We're just settling into a very wide range with a very thin capitalization, right? And that's why it's just pushing from one end to the other very, very easily. So it's our job to wait till it's patient. Again, what I would stress the most, I've been through this before, don't allow your capital to become something that can be lost very easily. That would be my main suggestion. In the meantime, I'm going to work these 30-minute charts like a beast until I get them right. So at 62.89, I'm just looking for alternative methods for what the rest of the market is working off of. And it makes sense to go to a higher time frame when everything else isn't working, right? Give me just a second, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, so here's that 62.74 that it has to get behind. And you can see it's pushing right to it. And it should find an attempt at responsive buying here the first time in. But apparently not. So holding below 62.74. There it goes. This is holding that third. This is the point of control from the first up bar. Getting underneath it would create an area where we can now roll to the downside. So based on the 5-minute bar there, I will have a short if we trade below the low of that bar, assuming that bar closes or whenever that bar closes, which right now would be so it would be 62.70 and a quarter again would be that number. Again, the stop all the way back at the high. That's the problem with the huge ranges that we're having. So I have a limit to sell at 62.70 and a quarter, small size, right? I'll update that as the chart updates. Again, I'm just going out the algo right now because I don't have a read. We're backside testing above that 62.74 now. ES, this is essentially open auction on ES. By the way, on ES also has a short there at the 5 minute. And that would trigger at 27.50. Right into, by the way, a decent volume area, just so you know. Holding that 74 so far. And really, if you took that short on NQ, you wouldn't want to see it close above 62.74. Russell's still struggling. Of course, it's not at his zone one way or the other. That ES about to trigger, just did. So did that NQ. Again, a close above 74 keeps it above that point of control from the first half hour. So I'm not sure, Ian, but this is pretty close. Ron's pointing out if Russell closes below 15.18, it probably goes down to 14.90 this week, which totally probable. Yeah, I've got no idea what this thing's trying to do. Like I said, I'll recognize it when it slows down, and I'll have a pretty clear direction on path. I've been here before. We're all getting used to a new range, right? So again, I'm trading very small till I get my rhythm down. That's all I can say. NQ is really dangerous right now for tight stops. You can just rack up loss after loss after loss. Ron, my thoughts go back to your comment from yesterday, which is buyers are just very, very confident that that the bounce will get bought and pushed back up. You see that repeatedly in the way the market's behaving, is that they're just going to buy it and push it back up. I don't know that I buy that. Again, from where that ES triggered in, right? See how the algo would take that and go, oh, that's a profitable trade, right? For us, it may not be a profitable trade. We got to get below that 62, 63. So you've got to be able to read into the market to a certain degree. Also, notice that net all the ticks. It's easier to see when you turn it to a 15-minute chart. Here's the zero line. Notice that the majority of the day, we have spent below the zero line on the body of the ticks. It's been negative the majority of the day. So just keep that in mind, please. I wish I had an easy answer to figuring the riddle out, but I don't right now. So my size is small until I figure that out, and then I'll attack. Which I figure will come around 10 a.m. We'll have a clearer picture. And the problem with NQ here is not that it won't give you a trade. The problem is reining in your emotional ability to handle the swing, right? So this may be a perfectly fine trade. We might look at the end of the day and go, oh, this was the bar that gave us the roll down to Tuesday's low for a retest, right? But from where you're entering, right, whether it's 74 or 72 or 70 or wherever you're entering from, right, can you handle the fact that it might go against you 15 points prior to rolling to your location? That's the challenge. Again, I'd be leery on size when I see the dome on ES so thin. That's a problem, guys. So just be aware. I don't know why it's so thin, but market makers are nervous. You know what, guys? Thank you all for joining me on YouTube. I totally forgot to shut it down. Thanks for joining. If you'd like to come and visit us in the room, just send me an email, tradeandperform@gmail.com, TRADENPERFORM. I'm happy to extend an invitation to be in the room with us. Have a great day, guys. And again, thank you all for joining. If you like the broadcast, please, please, please like the broadcast. It helps me with customer service from YouTube. Thank you all.